but I have it available for you freely online. Also, there's another required read, this research starter right here. It gives you some basic information about Robert Louis Stevenson, who is the author of this work right here. You see he's born in 1850, died 1894. He was a very sickly man most of his life, didn't live very long, tragically. But as you can see, we're already in our time machine and we're zipping forward many years, 50 years, 70 years, really. We are zipping forward. We're in the late 19th century now. You see, he's born in Edinburgh, Scotland. Edinburgh, Scotland. So this is our first Scottish author, and this course is going to look at writers from all over these two islands of Great Britain, England, and then the northern part of England is Scotland, in case you don't know already. And to the west of England is Ireland. We're going to read some Irish authors as well. Now, each of these countries have a history of enmity toward one another, but that's not going to be too emphasized in this work itself. Some things you might want to think about, though, in regards to the fact that Stevenson is Scottish and from Edinburgh, is some of these places. Edinburgh had a really dark kind of gothic side to it, had like a spooky past, mired in ghosts and hauntings and things like that. It was a great tradition in Scotland for people to be storytellers and things like that. But this story is set in London. Other things to keep in mind about Robert Louis Stevenson's life: he was a very sickly man, had tuberculosis, lived a lot of his life indoors, but he did travel to the United States, lived in the United States for a while. And he wrote a lot of adventure novels. Treasure Island is one of his more famous adventure novels that he wrote. And that's how most people know him. And this is his most famous work right here, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's one of the first major, clearly horror stories, in the modern sense of the word. The horror genre was beginning to be developed during this time. Edgar Allan Poe, for instance, in America was proliferating horror stories like Fall of the House of Usher and stuff like that. Other things to know about Stevenson: when he was a kid, much like Jekyll, he indulged in a lot of Bohemian fantasies. He went out and he lived kind of a lascivious lifestyle at times. He was also, and this is in contrast to the fact that he had a very strict religious upbringing, just like Dr. Jekyll did as well. So there seems to be perhaps some connections of Jekyll and Stevenson himself. Because he was so sick, he took a lot of medicines and things like that. And a lot of the medicines back in that time were full of drugs. Stuff nowadays that, we would consider to be hardcore illicit drugs, like opium and laudanum and stuff like that. Imagine, drinking pure heroin, I've got a splinter in my hand right here that's bothering me. They would have cocaine and stuff like that in these drugs. Coke famously, Coca-Cola famously had cocaine in it back in the day, as did Dr. Pepper and stuff like this, as did lots of drugs. And this work, why do I bring that up? Because this work itself has a lot to say about the nature of addiction and drug use and stuff like that, which was becoming a big issue in the time. Smoking hashish from and marijuana and things like that from the Caribbean and from China. Okay, I think I've said enough about Stevenson and his life thus far. Now, let's start talking about introducing you to the work itself. I have another document that gives you some key pages from the work to keep in mind. This is called Some Thematic Topics in Stevenson's and some study notes. So these are some key pages from the work right here where you can find some stuff about Utterson's character, Hyde's character, Jekyll's character right there. These are some of the main thematic trends that you're going to be seeing in the work. This is basically like essay topics. If you want to ask me what are some topics I might write about, voila. The idea of appearance versus reality, the idea of nature of good and evil, superstition, mysticism, and science. The work's going to talk about identity, a lot about the idea about identity, and in particular, public versus private identity. What do we like in the public? What's my identity like in the public versus what is my identity like when I'm alone in private? Is it different? The idea of the rational versus the irrational, the idea of repression. A lot of the stuff going on in this work is going to anticipate Sigmund Freud and his work in modern psychology and his study on the interpretation of dreams, which happens around the turn of the 20th century. We're going to deal with the hatred and disgust and our subconscious fears and desires. We're also going to talk about the duality of man and the idea of the primitive versus the civilized and the obsession with the unknown. Most folks, if I've already posted the discussion forum prompts that you can write about for this, okay? Pretty much anything. You can write about some of these topics right here, or if you find one that you find interest in as well, that might be something to explore. Some people write about drug use, the idea of addiction. Some people talk about Utterson's character in their posts. Others talk about Hyde's character. I've seen good essays on each one of these, and I've seen good essays comparing and contrasting these different cats as well. So, is there anybody online or in present who have not heard of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde before or are not familiar at all with it? You haven't heard about it before? No? Neither you? Oh, you have? It's one of the more famous stories. Okay. All right. So we do have some people who have no idea what it's about. I can't imagine what it's like to read this book without knowing the basic premise of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because it just seems like I was born knowing what it was about. I'm not sure where I first encountered this book, but Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is famously the story of a doctor, of a good doctor, like an upstanding citizen, one of the best folks you could run into. Imagine like, you know, the most outstanding citizen in Starkville, Mississippi, okay? Like you might say the mayor, you know, a person of upstanding moral character, okay? The person who everybody trusts, who everybody loves, the president of Mississippi State University, you know, something like that. Somebody everybody respects. The example of good. Imagine he's got a hidden life. He's got hidden desires, things that nobody else knows. He experiments in science and strange projects and stuff behind doors. On the face of things, he seems like a fine, upstanding doctor, but behind closed doors, he's doing all of these experiments, mysterious experiments, dabbling in stuff that nobody should dabble with. He concocts a potion, a drug that he quaffs and turns him into this awful, monstrous, Hyde, Mr. Hyde, this individual who is evil, pure evil. Okay? And he goes about his life in this dual states. Anytime he wants to, he goes out and he takes this potion and he turns into Hyde whenever he wants to. And this Hyde allows him to indulge in his fantasies, whatever they may be, without fear of repercussion. You know? Imagine this upstanding citizen that you know. Maybe it's a preacher, okay? Person of fine moral upstanding who can, at any time he wants, change his entire form into another person and go out and do some of the worst things imaginable. Some of the things that Hyde does. He tramples over a poor little girl, an innocent little girl, beats her up. Okay? He murders a man viciously. Hyde is pure evil, does whatever he wants to. He is characterized as the embodiment of fear and hatred. Imagine that this is the same person, and that's the basic premise of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This really good man, anytime he wants to, can turn into this awful, horrible, monstrous man. Now, as you start out reading, and Hyde is very gross. Every time anybody talks about him, they say about how like he makes them feel revulsed, sick at their stomach every time they see him physically. And he's a stunted dude, like he's like half the size of Jekyll, but he's, I've seen a lot of different characterizations of him because this has been made into a movie 1,000 times. It's been made into a play 1,000 times by 1,000 different people. Sometimes he's like this huge, like behemoth, that comes around and bangs through doors and beats up innocent children and rapes women and things like that. And other times he is, as he is in this novel itself, a stunted little individual. But he's full of anger and full of wrath. So this story starts out, when we read it, though, we're in the point of view of Utterson. Now, Utterson is an old friend of Jekyll. Utterson is a fine, morally upstanding individual as well. And Utterson is going to be the eyes for most of the first half of our narrative. Utterson doesn't know that this has happened to Jekyll. He doesn't know what's been going on with Jekyll, his friend. Okay? He doesn't know that Jekyll and Hyde are the same person. Okay? And so he's experiencing all these things. He's running across this strange guy named Hyde, and he's utterly revulsed. But one thing he does know is that Jekyll came to him several months ago, and he said, I want you to rewrite my will. Now, Utterson's a lawyer. He's Dr. Jekyll's lawyer. I want you to rewrite my will, and in my will, in the case of my death or disappearance, everything I own goes to Mr. Hyde. Okay? And Utterson, being, a good friend of Jekyll, doesn't like this idea at all. He's like, this guy, he suspects this guy is blackmailing him for some secret. He doesn't know what. It's like Polyjuice potion from Harry Potter. I don't remember that. And Grace says something about, I thought it was about someone with split personality disorder. And this is one thing that some people compare it to. They could say it is a psychological novel. It studies the psychology of a person who wants to, and that's one of the key character traits of Jekyll, who wants to who is good on the outside, but who wants to live out some of these fantasies that he's had. And there's going to be some debate, and we're going to have some discussion about what some of these fantasies are. There's lots of different, and Stevenson leaves a lot of it, unsaid. There's some of it that he wrote into the novel that his wife made him burn because she thought that it was so, racy. Lots of people say that there's suggestions of homosexuality. There's suggestions of also drug use, rape, incest. The list goes on and on and on, right? Definitely what we know from the character of Hyde are some of the things that I've already said. We definitely know that if these are Jekyll's hidden desires, his hidden desires are to harm others. We definitely know from Hyde's character that wanting to harm other people is one of his repressed tendencies. On the face of things, he's a benefactor of the poor, he's helping people, but underneath things, it suggests that even a person like that on the inside might want to harm these people that he or she helps. Maybe it's a study of split personality disorder as well, a person who has these two different things. Maybe it's a study of what it's like to be a person who abuses drugs, who all the time is full of all of these worries in his life and anxieties, and can't wait to go and take that heroin and shove it into his veins and imagine just letting loose and chill. Maybe it's one of the first novels that do that here. These are all things to think about. Let me say just a couple more things, and then I'll start working toward letting you go. That way you know what's going on. When Utterson discovers that the nature of Hyde and this young child that Hyde beat up, he's utterly appalled, and he starts trying to reach out to Jekyll and try to get Jekyll to, not do this anymore. Other characters we're going to be seeing are Dr. Lanyon, who is another doctor who disapproves of Jekyll's methods of tinkering and science. This harkens up to stuff like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, another novel that explores tinkering and science. As we go along, we discover more and more about Hyde, and things get more complicated as Hyde murders a man and then disappears, and Jekyll's character alters. The key chapter we're going to be reading is the final chapter of this work, which is going to be Jekyll's narrative. After all is said and done, Utterson discovers a letter from Jekyll that reveals, that confesses all the things that he's been going through, and that's really the most important chapter of this book itself. As we go forward to next class period, I'm going to start digging into things. Cameron asked if he was a humane doctor. From all points that we can see here, he was a philanthropist, he was a good doctor. On the face of things, he was about as good as we could say. And Utterson does not know what Jekyll is doing until the very end, when we discover his letter. Utterson does not know that Jekyll and Hyde are the same person. Okay, let's anticipate what's going on next time. There are no assignments due tonight. No, you're supposed to respond to peers in the